Your Royal Highness Sultan Nazrin Muizzuddin Shah, Sultan of Perak and Deputy Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Mr. Ruben Gnanalingam, my moderator for this evening, Dato Rohana, my host-in-chief who invited me many times to come, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me this evening, and I'm delighted to be back in Kuala Lumpur again. I visited Malaysia many times, but this is my very first visit in my new role as Senior Minister. And tonight, let me share a few thoughts on the Singapore-Malaysia relationship. In 1995, almost 30 years ago, I spoke at the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations here in KL. And I described how Singapore-Malaysia relations were then steadily improving. And today, I can say with confidence the same thing, that our bilateral relations are positive, that our cooperation continues to expand and is growing in new areas that benefit both countries. Singapore and Malaysia have always been each other's top economic partners. Singapore is Malaysia's largest source of foreign investment. We both trade more with each other than with anyone else, except for a few much bigger countries like China and the United States. But otherwise, we are each other's biggest trading partners. On land, Johor-Singapore Causeway is one of the world's busiest land crossings, with over 300,000 people crossing every day. That means 150,000 in each direction. And on Hari Raya long weekend, even more. In the air, the KL-Singapore connection is one of the world's busiest international flight routes. And next year, 2025, we celebrate 60 years of bilateral relations. And for most of this period, I have been closely associated one way or the other with promoting our bilateral relations. First, when I was serving in the Singapore Armed Forces, working closely with my counterparts in the Malaysian Armed Forces. We worked bilaterally to strengthen mutual confidence and understanding between the SAF and the MAF. We also worked multilaterally to enhance regional security, in particular under the FPDA, the Five Power Defense Arrangements, and the IADS, which was then called the Integrated Air Defense System up in Butterworth. Until today, I still keep in touch with a few of the old soldiers who are with me, now retired. For example, Tun Hashim Ali, who's now nearly 90, and I was very happy to bump into him yesterday at the New Agong's installation. He later became Chief of Army and then Chief of Defense Forces. And on one occasion, this was before the Malayan Communist Party came out from the jungles and abandoned the armed insurrection. Tun Hashim, who was then the division commander, took us to and showed us around his operational deployments near the border, along the Thai border, including one deployment at the Temenggor Dam in Perak. And as a result of that, the SAF officers came home from Tasik Temenggor well laden with ikan toman. It's part of understanding each other, building friendship, cooperation, and long-lasting links which are valuable to both sides. As Trade and Industry Minister, I work closely with my MITI counterparts, including Tan Sri Rafida Aziz. We expanded bilateral economic cooperation, especially between Singapore and Johor. We pursued regional projects, including the ASEAN Free Trade Area and the Indonesia-Malaysia-Singapore Growth Triangle. And we made common cause in multilateral forums like the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It was in those days called GATT, nowadays is the World Trade Organization, where both countries supported trade and investment liberalization, and we both attended the meetings together. We were both in the Green Room, which was a smaller group of countries negotiating, and we supported one another because we were both in favor of more free trade and speaking up for the rights of the smaller countries and the developing countries. Later, as PM, I worked with successive Malaysian prime ministers to strengthen bilateral ties, and we achieved quite a few things. In 2007, for example, PM Abdullah Badawi and I held our first leaders' retreat in Langkawi. The leaders' retreat has become a regular platform for leaders on both sides to come together to discuss bilateral issues, to build trust, and to forge closer personal friendships. The following year, Tun Abdullah and I both accepted the ICJ judgment on Pedra Branca and agreed to move on to work on maritime delimitation around Pedra Branca, which is a task which is still ongoing. And it was at a subsequent leaders' retreat in 2010 that PM Najib and I broke a 20-year impasse and settled the long-standing KTM railway land issue. Between Najib and I, we worked out a way forward, and we proceeded. Made a deal, fully implemented. Land has been swapped, joint projects have been built. In Singapore, there are 2 joint projects, one at Marina One in Marina Bay South, the other one at the Duo at the Bugis area. And on the Johor side, in the Malaysian side, in Iskandar, Malaysia, there are 2 projects. One is an Avira, and the other one is the Affinity Medini project, wellness projects in Iskandar, Malaysia. And both sides are happy with the resolution, and it's a matter of great satisfaction to both of us, or both parties, that we not only achieved a win-win outcome, but we were able to do so in a constructive and amicable manner that enhanced our trust and confidence in each other, and enable us to think of going on from that to doing more things together. More recently, I worked closely with my successive counterparts during the COVID pandemic. We helped each other to bring home our citizens from other countries who had been stranded when borders closed. We exchanged information on the state of the outbreak and cooperated on vaccines, because from a disease control point of view, it's very difficult to separate Malaysia and Singapore. And when movement controls became unavoidable and we had to close the borders, we did our best to manage the challenges, reconnecting families, supporting stranded migrant workers. Later, after the situation stabilized, we worked hand in hand to reopen land links and to re-establish supply chains. Looking ahead, there are quite a few joint projects which are promising and underway. For example, the Johor Bahru Singapore RTS link system, Rapid Transit System Link, is making good progress. If you go to JB and look out at the Straits of Johor, you can see the bridge which is crossing over, and it's joined up, and the work is progressing well. PM Anwar Ibrahim and I witnessed the completion of the connecting span linking up the marine viaduct at the international boundary in the middle of the water in January. And we hope to complete the RTS link by the end of 2026. And it will make cross-border travel much more convenient and should significantly ease the congestion on the Johor Causeway. Another example of a promising project is the proposed Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone. Important details are still being discussed and need to be worked out and agreed upon. But when it is realized, the SEZ will attract significant investments and create business opportunities and jobs for both Malaysia and Singapore. Of course, over the years, we've also had to deal with more difficult and sensitive issues between us, like supply of water, airspace management, and maritime delimitation. Discussions have proceeded quietly behind the scenes generally, and I expect that they will take some time to reach a conclusion. But all in all, both sides have made significant progress in our relationship over the decades. And we should appreciate how hard-won and precious this has been, both the specific things which we have achieved and also the overall good state of our relationship. it is not at all to be taken for granted. Because the reality is, as Datuk Rohana reminded us just now, that Malaysia and Singapore share a close but inherently complex relationship. Therefore, leaders and the two governments have to take a strategic perspective to manage issues closely and sensitively from the point of view of the overall relationship. They have to be aware of the potential difficulties and pitfalls, but at the same time be alert to the tremendous dividends provided we can navigate around the problems and work together. And then they have to be able to take an overall view of the relationship and guide it in a safe and wise direction. We have been able to do so with some success in the past, and I hope that we will be able to continue to do so for a long time to come yet. Why do I say that the relationship is complex? Well, most fundamentally, because of how our two countries came into being. We share a history of coming together in difficult circumstances, followed by a separation that was traumatic for both sides. Two into one, and then one became two again. For older Singaporeans and Malaysians, these were searing and unforgettable experiences. Now, that generation is passing on. And the passions of the 1960s and maybe 70s are fading into the past. Perhaps later generations will be able to see things with a more detached view. But we need to understand that while the passions may subside, the underlying fundamental issues that complicate our relationship have not gone away. And what are some of these fundamental issues? First of all, there is the contrasting structures of our two societies and the radically different approaches that we have taken to manage this long-term structural reality. We are both multiracial societies, and we both celebrate that fact. But our societies are inverse images of each other. Not exactly the same, but inverse images. Singapore's majority ethnic Chinese, minority Malay and others. Malaysia is majority Malay and minority Chinese and others. Furthermore, our two countries have adopted radically contrasting strategies towards building multiracial societies. And therefore, things that either side does, things that we take for granted within our own societies, can easily raise eyebrows and be misinterpreted on the other side, and can cause misunderstanding or unhappiness every now and then. Secondly, beyond this structural difference, there are also difficult and inherently sensitive issues that crop up from time to time and to which we cannot easily find win-win solutions. I earlier mentioned three long-standing issues: water, airspace management, maritime delimitation. These are things we've been talking about and making progress on, but we keep on making progress, but the issues keep on being there for many years now. And they cannot simply be solved once and for all over an informal makan or even a feast of durians. They need hard work and serious discussion to identify workable and durable approaches to manage the continuing issues and to accommodate each other's vital interests. So you can manage them, you can make progress settling pain points, but you cannot make them disappear. And this is a difficult task, but it is possible, even with such difficult tasks, to find constructive ways to make progress together, as we did with Pedra Branca, as we did with the KTM land, even as we did with water when we made an agreement, built the Lingui Dam, which has been to the benefit of both countries now for nearly 30 years. The need to take into account domestic political sentiments often makes these issues even more complex and delicate. Hence, if the time is not yet ripe to make a breakthrough on some difficult issue, then the two governments will still have to continue to do our best to keep matters under control and to insulate our broader cooperation from these unresolved problems. And we mustn't inadvertently let an issue get politicized, get played up, poison the overall relationship, and make things even harder and very damaging for both sides. So that's the second problem, that some issues are inherently difficult to resolve and require hard work and political courage. Third, between close neighbors, there's always an element of neighborly rivalry. This is inevitable given our close proximity and shared history. Recently, we marked 100th anniversary of the Causeway. 100 years of kinship, 100 years of shared ties, 100 years of interwoven culture. After 100 years, the Causeway is still standing. A great achievement, but if you think back, you will also realize not such a trivial thing, because it might not still be standing. So many things could have gone wrong, but it is still standing. But it means very close interactions, and therefore we can't avoid things getting competitive from us from time to time. There is an Irving Berlin song. This dates me, but never mind, I will just tell you. It says, anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. And sometimes people on either side of the Causeway adopt this attitude towards the other. Once in a while, not always, but once in a while. And therefore, we can have very passionate arguments over football, or over songs like Rasa Sayang, or over food. Who invented laksa? Where did yusheng come from? Whose nasi lemak is the best? Right? These are friendly rivalries. Some of it is quite good. It adds an extra zing to our relationship. When we sit down for drinks, there's something new to discuss. And some incentive to outdo each other and to push both countries forward. But we also have to make sure that passions don't get out of hand. So we are in different societies. We have complicated bilateral issues. We have sibling competition. These are some of the reasons why we have an inherently sensitive and complex relationship. But despite this, both sides know that we have to work together because there is no alternative for either us. We may like each other, we may have difficulties with each other, but we will forever be closest neighbors of each other. I can't move away, Malaysia can't move away, we are forever on each other's doorstep. I think it's much better we get along together. We can refuse to deal with each other. You can engage in endless rounds of tit for tat. But it's not sensible, it's not viable for either side. We will give each other endless trouble, we will miss out on many opportunities for win-win cooperation, and neither of us will get any joy or benefit out of it. So I'm glad that at the highest levels on both sides, we've generally been able to keep the big picture in mind and to make big progress even though we've not always agreed on every issue. As I recounted earlier, I enjoyed good rapport with many Malaysian leaders, including Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, whom I've known for a very long time. I'm glad that at this moment of transition in Singapore, between me and my successor, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, bilateral ties are stable and positive. PM Wong made an early introductory visit to Malaysia last month. He emphasized his priority to establish a good working rapport with PM Anwar, and PM Anwar was very generous to receive him, and reciprocated these sentiments and emphasized that he too looked forward to a very healthy and strong relationship with the new Singapore PM. So I have every confidence that PM Lawrence Wong will work with PM Anwar to take our partnership forward. As senior minister, I now have a different supporting role, and I'll do all I can in that role to strengthen ties further and to help forge new ones between our two countries. Looking forward, our two countries have every reason to keep building our relationship. We live in an increasingly troubled world. There are conflicts in Europe and the Middle East. There's great power contestation, especially between the US and China. And it has affected not just international trade or global supply chains, which severely impacts both Singapore and Malaysia, given our two open and trade-dependent economies. But it's also affected regional security. And you can see this playing out in cross-strait tensions and in the South China Sea. These developments make it much tougher for small countries to keep themselves safe and to improve their people's lives. And it's crucial that ASEAN countries work together to enhance regional stability and integration and to tackle regional challenges. And within ASEAN, I think Malaysia and Singapore see things very similarly. That's why both Malaysia and Singapore support ASEAN strongly. And as Malaysia takes on the chairmanship next year of ASEAN, you can count on Singapore's fullest support. We also cooperate in the broader Asia-Pacific region. We are both members of the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and also of the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. They are trade agreements. We participated because we believe in free trade. Free trade is weakening, fragmenting, but we think these are things we can do to buttress it and to protect our interests. We also believe in prospering our neighbors and doing more with them despite the trend of deglobalization and decoupling. Actually, if we look at more than 200 countries in the world, despite all our complexities and differences between us, Malaysia and Singapore have more in common than most other countries. Our interests are often aligned in having our part of the world stay stable, open, and connected, in promoting ASEAN as our base, in doing more business and trade with each other, in emphasizing improvements to our people's lives. And this gives our two countries every reason to continue working closely together to seize the many new opportunities up there. For example, in renewable energy, Sarawak is keen to export hydropower. Singapore is happy to buy. If Peninsular Malaysia has green energy too, we'd be happy to be made an offer. More broadly, in the digital and green sectors, there are many growth opportunities for both our economies, for example, in AI or in decarbonization. As members of the KL Business Club, you would be happy to hear that we want to grow our bilateral relationship and to keep the political relationship stable and friendly so as to foster a conducive business environment. The more stable the political atmospherics are, the easier it is for business people to do their business and not have to worry about the weather or to carry an umbrella. We hope both businesses on both sides will take advantage of opportunities across the causeway. Many Singaporean companies are already in Malaysia and looking to expand, and many Malaysian companies are in Singapore doing the same. On Friday, when I came, I had a reception with Singaporeans who are here in Malaysia. I had 200 plus of them come with families, some from around KL, some from further afield, some came even from KK on East Coast. And many of them are doing business here. Quite a few of them are married to Malaysians, living here, some for 30, 40, 50 years, still Singaporean, and contributing to the friendship between our two countries. The more our two countries can keep things positive and stable, and the fewer political ups and downs there are, the more both our peoples will benefit. The continued progress and prosperity of our two countries and peoples hinges on our maintaining the win-win, equal, and mutually respectful relationship that we have. Long may we share this goal. Long may our peoples continue to enjoy the blessings of peace, harmony, and friendship that we and previous generations have worked so hard to build. Thank you very much.